So here are the supplies that you need. You will need to have your paints, your paper, a tub of water. So there's your paints, there's your tub of water, your palette, which you can mix paints on, and your paint brushes. And you should have about 4 or 5 paint brushes. And lastly, your paper towels. So you're either working on the gray paper or the black paper. I'm going to start with the gray paper. So first you're going to select one of your brushes. Extra brushes you can put in your bin. There are holes in the side and you can place them right in the side while you're not using them. I would start with one of the flatter brushes, and that is better for kind of just roughing up the surface of the paint. You kind of push into it so that you get more paint and pigment on your paintbrush itself. It's almost like you are scrubbing it. When you're using the pointed brushes, you don't get quite as much of a scraping, so you can use that for finer detail. You can see the difference between the point and the flat brush. The flat brush is just going to scrape more of the pigment off. You don't want to use too much water. You want just enough water to roughen up the surface. And then you're looking to load your brush with the pigment. So I'm not going to be drawing anything in particular, but I'm just going to kind of practice blending on my palette, and I can also do some blending on the paper itself. The Fauvist did not do that much blending. They used spots of color and a little bit of blending and overlapping and natural mixing on the paper. So I'm laying down some color here. Now I'm going to get some white and place it right over it. Overlay some more blue. So you can kind of blend this way by overlapping and overlaying each of the colors that you're trying to blend. Or you can kind of create like spots and your eye will blend those together. So it's dabs of color that kind of intermingle and mix together, and that is sort of like how the Pointillists worked and the Impressionists worked, and the Fauvist worked a bit on that way as well. So you're laying down one color and then you're going over it, so you can see you can still blend the colors, so you have blue and yellow equaling green. And if you want, you could zigzag your paintbrush to do a little bit more smooth blending. So zigzagging blends the two colors that you have laid on the paper. And then you take a brush and smooth it over a little bit more, usually with one color and then the other color. So here I'm going to try doing a little bit more of the dabbing of the paint colors. I've got the yellow. Here's the blending, zigzagging with the blending. Now watch, I'll take the blue paintbrush and I'll drag that over. And then I'll start with the yellow paintbrush. Notice how much I'm using the paper towel. And then I'll work my way up. So if you do want to do a blending area, that is the way to get a slow gradation from one color to the next. So you put two colors down next to each other, you zigzag in between, drag one color across with the brush, and then the second color across with the brush. Now I'm going to do more of the dabbing of colors with a natural mixing. So here I'm dabbing the blue, so it's almost going from dark blue to lighter blue, And now I'm going to put yellow in and put some more yellow on the bottom. And now I'm dabbing yellow, intermixing with the blue, and then up onto the blue a little bit. And this is very much how the Impressionists work and the Fauvists work. Bring a little bit of the blue down. And then maybe I'm putting a little white in there too. I also want to show you, if you're putting two shapes next to each other, you're still leaving a little line. You're leaving a little gap. And that's the style that we're using for this painting, especially if you're using the black paper. So let's say I have a little line that I want to separate some shapes. This is how I would do it. I would just put one shape next to another and leave a little bit of that natural paper between the two shapes. And you can mix on the palette if you need to create a special color, or you can mix on the paper the way I've shown you. Now here I'm going to paint on black paper. So it's basically the same process. You're scrubbing the pigment so that you get a lot on the brush. I'm also going to put two shapes next to each other, and they're not going to be of anything in particular, but I want to show you how I leave space in between my two shapes, which is a common characteristic of the Fauvist paintings. And once again, I'm adding another color in there. And here, I'm not going to use my plastic palette. I'm just going to do some blending on the paper itself by putting dabs of color next to each other and kind of going back and forth and overlapping them. You can see how much I'm kind of scrubbing up the paint to pick up as much pigment as possible. And once again, a reminder that when this dries, it will dry to be more vivid. The water is soaking into the paint, to the paper, and it's making a little less vivid until it dries. And you should have a couple of paintbrushes available and use all of those paintbrushes for different colors. I usually have a couple in my hand as I'm working. And here I am overlapping, kind of dabbing color to mix them. And I use my paper towel a lot, and I use the water a fair amount too. Putting some white in there, once again scrubbing it up to get a lot on my brush, and then I want to blend it in a little bit. Doing the other side. And as this dries, you can start seeing that there's a little space in between these two shapes that is all black paper. Blending it in to mix the colors. So cleaning your paint, if it gets a little mucked up with other colors, you take a paper towel, just put a little water on it, and basically wipe it off. You can do the same thing for the palette. Even if the paint is dry, put a little water on the paper towel and wipe it up.